I've tried just about every single viral concealer over the last couple of years, and for today's video, I am going to be sharing with you all 26 of them, all of my thoughts, how they wore, which ones I like, which ones I don't like, what level of coverage they give, all of that good information. So I hope this can help you find your way to your new favorite concealer. My skin is naked today because I'm going to be demoing for you all 26 today. Now, this is not a rankings video. That would be too difficult. There's just so many different purposes to a concealer. However, I am putting the ones I like the least kind of at the beginning of the video, and then we'll get to the ones I really love towards the end of the video. So this first group I have is a group of concealers that I just really don't like. Like, these are the least favorite concealers. But like I said, this is not a ranking because I do still want to pair similar concealers, commonly compared concealers. But generally speaking, this group of 5 or 6, I personally wouldn't recommend them, and they are absolutely overhyped. I cannot believe how popular these are. So the first concealer I have, this is a controversial one, but I do not like the Kosas Revealer Concealer. Now, do keep in mind, this is a viral video. These were the most popular concealers. So clearly, a lot of people do love these, but I've got to be honest in that this concealer is not for me. And I've tried so many times to make this work for me because I just don't understand why it doesn't. Now, what you need to know about my under eyes and my preferences, I do have a lot of blue in this inner corner. I do have a little bit of hollowing here, and I do have fine lines. I am 28 years old, but of course, I am still young, but there is some fine line happening. Now, this has about a medium coverage, I would say, and it's known for its hydrating finish, but I always feel like no matter what with this concealer, my under eye fine lines are very evident. This does not sit still on my under eyes. Even when I set it, it settles into the fine lines and makes my under eyes look aged. So this one is not my favorite, and it's one of those that they look really good in the first 10 minutes of wear, and then the longer I wear it, the less good it looks. Even now I can see that it looks a little bit dry on my under eyes because I do have some dry under eyes, and this does emphasize it. Like I said, so many people do love this concealer, but I just can't get over how dry and heavy it looks on my under eyes. The next concealer I have, this one is more so viral, I would say, because it's a new launch, but I also don't love this one. This is a very new concealer from Say. It's called the Slip Tint Concealer, and honestly, slip is a good word to use this because this concealer does not set on me, and I'm applying more product than I normally would so that it'll pick up better on camera. But this settles into fine lines and wrinkles that I'm telling you I didn't even know was there. This product doesn't set at all. It just continues swimming in the fine lines. It's very liquidy, and especially when I don't set this, I notice it settling into so many fine lines on the under eyes that really aren't visible to the naked eye. So I find this overall to be a very unflattering concealer. It again also has a medium coverage, and the finish of it is quite pretty. It's thin, it doesn't really fill in the hollowness of eyes, but that's just a personal problem. But yeah, this one doesn't set at all, and it just likes to go swimming in those fine lines. So for me, no on both of these. Let's keep going. This next concealer I feel like is very popular because of the name. This is the Rare Beauty Concealer. This is absolutely one of the best-selling, most popular brands on the market right now. So naturally, I did want to mention their concealer. This is one where I feel like it's too thick and ages the under eyes. Now, do keep in mind I can only get so far in my demos where I'm not setting it. I'm just doing a quick little application like this where the product doesn't have time to settle, doesn't have time to set or work with other makeup. But this one is a thicker consistency, and it just makes my under eyes look aged and dry, and I do think a lot of that has to do with the thickness of the concealer. I did apply a little bit of a more minimal amount, and I can see the product gathering a little bit right here. It looks a little bit more on the dry side, but when it comes to actual putting into practice and wearing it, it always looks thick and dry on my under eyes. Another extremely popular brand, probably the most popular brand up there with Rare Beauty, is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Radiant Concealer. You know what's funny? I personally don't love the base products that Charlotte Tilbury does. I am not in love with any of her foundations. I'm not in love with any of her concealers as well. So this one is supposed to have a little bit of a glow to it. It is a drier consistency. It doesn't necessarily look dry because it does have a glow to it, but it's thicker and it sets pretty fast. If you want to compare it to the Rare Beauty side, it definitely has some more bounce to it because it's supposed to have that glowy finish. This is one that doesn't wear very well. It makes my under eyes look pretty wrinkly very fast when it comes to wear time on this. There's so many other concealers that make my under eye look smooth, and this one doesn't. I overall just find this to be an unflattering and not long wearing concealer, so it's not for me. Some notes to take away from this is it's glowy and it has a medium coverage, but I've never experienced good wear with this. This is one that I've tried so many times to make it work, but I just don't love it the way it makes my under eyes work. I feel like it doesn't set down and it always looks thick, cakey, and creasy on my under eyes. It's the Hourglass concealer. And this is definitely one of the most best-selling concealers on the market, and it's also been for many, many, many years. This is a concealer where less is more, for sure. That's how I find it cakes up and doesn't crease the most, but just like I shouldn't have to be so careful, and I still don't love it when I apply just a little bit. It is a very full coverage concealer, but it always looks so cakey to me. That being said, this is an OG favorite for so many people. It's worked out for a lot of people. This one of the ones that I've demoed thus far, if you can tell, has had the most coverage. The most has gone the long way with this. But for me, I personally wouldn't recommend this to anybody. However, mostly everybody else does, so keep that in mind. But these are my reviews and I don't love this. I don't know if you can see, but it's just not looking smooth. It's catching onto dry patches. Not for my little under eyes. Now for this next one, you're going to have to excuse the shade matte. I pulled this from my makeup kit, which by the way is probably expired at this point, but I used this concealer in my kit to mix with other products, but it's too drying for me. It's the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is one of the fullest coverage concealers on the market, and if you have oily skin, I think you will like it more than I do because I do have dry skin. Less is also more with this product. It's not a bad product, and it's a product that I found useful to mix with other products because of the level of coverage it can get you, and it also has a relatively thin layout considering all of the coverage that it can give, but because it gives so much coverage, it also is quite drying. So for my preferences, this hasn't been great. It's not been a concealer that I wanted to reach for, but especially oily skin, if you need full coverage, this still is one of the best full coverage concealers on the market. If you want to take a closer look, though, I don't think these demos do the concealer justice because I've worn all of these so much. I can tell you how they're going to wear and how they're going to dance with other products. Dang, this Hourglass? She full coverage, ain't she? Tarte's line truly has too much going on. They had the original Shape Tape. They also have the ultra creamy Shape Tape. And this I was definitely hopeful for because I always thought the Shape Tape was too dry. And obviously it was for them to create a creamy version, and it still gives good coverage, but it definitely doesn't give as much coverage as the original version, but I'm okay with foregoing that to get a more creamy base. But I don't have anything bad to say about this concealer, if I'm being honest. It's just one that I haven't reached for. I haven't wanted to reach for it a lot because I wouldn't say it's done my under eyes any favors, you know? It's a product that I don't have anything bad to say about, but it also isn't anything that's going to stand out against my large collection of concealers. But it's creamier, it's more hydrating on the under eyes. It has a medium to full coverage, not quite hitting full like the Tarte Shape Tape, but it's an okay concealer. And then just to make matters more confusing in their line, they also have a radiant concealer. So I wanted to do the creamy and radiant side by side. The radiant concealer is the newest of the Tarte Shape Tape line. So this is the one that I've probably used the least. This one does give a radiant finish. I don't know that I love radiant glowy finishes on the under eyes because I find, you know, if you have more mature under eyes, that radiance can emphasize texture and fine lines. It just depends on the formula really, because something too matte's going to dry out the under eye, but also something too glowy, it can emphasize fine lines, and it can also swim in those fine lines because a radiant formulation by nature is not going to set, it's going to continue to move, but it definitely has more of a glowy look comparing it to the creamy. I think it has an even lighter coverage as well. This is an okay concealer. I'm not one to reach for a radiant finish, so that's why I don't love it. I don't think that these are twins to the original Shape Tape. I don't think they give the same level of coverage, but I do like them better. Of the three, the creamy is my favorite, but yeah, overall, I do find these to be a little bit overhyped. There's just a lot of concealers that I like a lot more, but not bad. Not even the original one either. The next round of concealers is probably the most viral and popular at the drugstore. We're gonna talk the e.l.f. concealers. So we'll start off with the original, the Camo Concealer. This is for sure a play and a dupe on the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. That's what came first. I have atrocious shade matches in these concealers because I find it very difficult to find a good shade for me. They look so different in the bottles. Yeah, this one, very full coverage, one of the most full coverage concealers at the drugstore. So if you need something full coverage, here you go, and you don't want to spend a ton of money. It dries really fast, so you have to work fast. This is similar to the way that I feel about the Tarte Shape Tape. I think it's too drying, but sometimes you just need the coverage that it gives. And especially for the price point, I think it's really great. I love mixing this with other concealers, like more hydrating ones that don't have enough coverage. I will put a dollop of this e.l.f. Camo Concealer in, and it will solve my needs. So overall, I really like this concealer. It doesn't wear the best. My under eyes do look dry, and it will go into the fine lines, which, let me clarify, pretty much every concealer is going to go into the fine lines, but some more than others, right? So this one does have a tendency to travel throughout the day, but not in a bad way. Overall, I think this is a really great concealer option at the drugstore. It's just a bit drying for dry skin and dry under eyes, but you can aid it and mix it with other products. So we're getting towards the good concealers now. Now, since these are all viral, most of them are pretty good. This is also really good. And then we have the Hydrating Camo Concealer, made for people like me who thought the original was too dry. The e.l.f. concealers in general, ignore the shade match, I find don't wear great. So I talked about that one being too drying. This one is like too wet and thick. It can settle into the fine lines as well. My happy medium is mixing both of these, and I feel like they kind of even out what I like and don't like about each of the concealers. With this being a hydrating concealer, it has very, very full coverage. I would say that these do warrant the hype that they get. They are so affordable and they give so much full coverage. And if you pair it with good products, they definitely will work. But these are concealers that I do find I never ever love the way that my under eyes look at the end of the day. Not bad, but never perfect. So do keep that in mind, but I think it's absolutely worth the price that you pay. If you want the fullest coverage on the drugstore front, here you go. These are great. The next concealer I have, I wasn't sure whether or not to include it because it's kind of a corrector, but I thought I'd mention it because it is extremely viral right now. It's the NYX Pro Fix Stick. They do sell these in more true to skin tone colors. Mine is like a good hybrid between a color corrector and a skin tone shade. These can be very drying, and if you have mature under eyes, be very, very careful. The best way to apply this is to warm it up with your finger. I find that when I use a brush, it looks really dry, and I use the warmth of my finger as well to apply it. Since I have more of a color correcting shade, I do focus this in the inner corner where I have the most level of blue. If you go directly on the under eye and you have more mature eyelids, I don't think you'd like the outcome of this. It's thick and it's dry, but it's full coverage and it lasts a long time. So I actually love to put this down as more so of a color corrector if I'm not using the fullest coverage concealer, and then putting my more hydrating concealer over top. I also think this is fantastic for zit coverage as well. If you need to spot conceal, It's fantastic for putting right on top. Just my biggest tip, use the warmth of your fingers and you'll get the most out of this product. I like it a lot, but stick it on the face. I think it can run too thick and too dry. But applied in minimal amounts with body heat, beautiful product. This one also had some moments in the sun here. This is the Rephr Beauty Concealer. Now, this is a pot concealer, and I don't love it on the under eyes. I think it looks a little too thick on my under eyes. My under eyes look very aged. Now, I'm very picky when it comes to concealer. As you can see, I mean, we are starting off with the concealers I just like the least. So this one I don't love on the under eyes. She looks really thick on the under eyes. It doesn't set down great. But where I love this concealer is on the face because it does have a really easy blend out. I also, just like the NYX, like to use this to spot conceal, or I'll even just whatever's left on my brush, I do like to use this just to tone down the red areas on my face. I love the thickness and the ability that it has to stay on this face area. But on the under eye area, I find it a bit too thick on myself. So I like this, but I'm not using it on my under eyes. We're definitely on the concealer part. We're just about after this round, halfway through. So this small group of concealers, I would say they're really good, but there are a couple trade-offs that I'll talk about. So first we have this one, which is more so new than it is viral. It's viral because it's new. So we'll see how much longevity this ends up having. But this is the Laura Mercier Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Concealer. Now, let me tell you guys, this is one of the longest lasting concealers on the market. But you know, I said this little section had some trade-offs. So this trade-off here is it's a little bit drying. So here's the deal. When you apply it, if you have dryness on the under eyes, I find that this can stick to it. It doesn't look the most hydrating, but when it sets, and your under eyes will look like that all day. So a word of advice is to hydrate your under eyes. Just have your skin hydrated before applying this, because when this sets, it's not going anywhere. It's not going into fine lines. The longevity on this is incredible, and I think a factor in the longevity in this is the fact that it's a little bit more drying, but it's pretty self-setting. It has a medium coverage as well to it. It can build up a little bit more, but not too much. You don't want to build up too much of this product on the under eye, but I really like this, and I know if I want my makeup to look good all day, this is one of my favorite concealers to go to. Next up, we have the Makeup by Mario concealer, another very, very popular brand. Pretty much everything he launches, it's gonna go viral. This has quite full coverage to it. And this is another one like the Laura Mercier. This is why I'm pairing them together. Very long wearing, but to get that long wear, it also is a bit drying. I think that this concealer is really great for oily skin and oily eyelids. I feel like it has great oil control. I like this as an eyeshadow primer. I had a friend who did use this, Anna, as eyeshadow primer, and she has oily lids, and it did not withstand the day in the eyeshadow, but it does on me. But do keep that in mind that it didn't withstand her oily eyelids. But in general, I think if you have oily skin, you're really gonna like this concealer. It's full coverage, it looks beautiful. Dry your under eyes, it is a bit dry, just prep the skin. I think this is a really nice concealer. Next up, I have the new Fenty Beauty concealer. I mean, this is an interesting video because some of these really have longevity in the market, so that probably makes them more reliable. This is one that's more so viral because it's new, but I really like it. This is one that has that angled applicator, which you might have seen some of these have. This gives about a medium coverage, and it's a hydrating concealer, which was the intention of this release, was to give us something more hydrating, because I thought their original concealer was thick and dry, and this one is very hydrating, and it's very rare for a concealer to be hydrating and give pretty good coverage, and this gives pretty good coverage. The only thing, this is the trade-off, I don't think it has the best longevity. This will settle into fine lines. This will need blended out throughout the day, but it's very smoothing and very hydrating and gentle on the under eyes. I think the formulation is gorgeous, but if I need to look flawless all day, I'm not reaching for this concealer. This is one where I need to set it with my favorite powder to get the most out of this. But it's a beautiful finish on the under eyes. It doesn't drag, it doesn't catch on to any dryness, and it's just very, very smooth. I really enjoy this formula, but it's not going to be an all-time favorite because it doesn't have the best longevity. Speaking of longevity, not in terms of wear, but just in terms of the amount of time people have been talking about this, what has kept this as viral is the Merit Concealer Stick. Now, this is a concealer, what do they call this? The Minimalist Perfecting Complexion Stick. This is meant to be used as concealer or foundation, whatever you so wish. And a lot of people love this product. They've done really good marketing. There's a little bit of drag when you apply it, but just like the NYX Pro Stick, I do recommend using a finger. I like this, but I like it more so for touch-ups or quick no makeup. I like to use it in smaller areas of the face. I don't love to just drag this on the under eyes. Now it is thinner than that NYX stick, so it can be used on the under eyes, but I think less is more when it comes to this product, which is honestly the theme of the brand. It's supposed to be for minimal looks, and it blends out nice and easy. It just has a little bit of drag on the stick form itself. It's one of those products where it's convenient. It's not necessarily the prettiest, it's not necessarily the easiest to use. It gives like a lighter medium coverage, but I don't know if you can see, it's pretty traceless on the skin, which I think makes it a unique product. So I like this a lot for no makeup days. This is the perfect no makeup concealer or touch-up concealer. Just take a little bit, blend it out. It does have more of a matte natural finish, but for touch-ups I like this, or for quick little applications and cover-ups, but I'm not globbing this all over my face personally. I don't love it that much, but for no makeup I think you'll really like this. And if you just like to take your finger and even out some areas, cover some zits, you'll like this. This is more convenient than it is a great product, but it's extremely convenient, so I still really like it. You get it? Were you getting that? I think, the question is it worth the hype? And for me, I'm gonna say yes, because of the convenience of it. I think it's a beautiful no makeup product, but I'm not reaching for it on the days that I want to look perfect. Now, this next group of concealers is the concealers that I love, the viral concealers that I think are worth the hype. By the way, filming this on a second day because it's a lot for the under eyes to handle. So next up we have the One Size Turn Up the Base Butter Silk Concealer. I love the name of this because I feel like it really accurately describes what you're going to get with this concealer. Buttery silkiness finish. So one of my favorite things about this concealer is how smooth it makes my under eyes look, and it gives a very full coverage. So if you're looking for a smoothing, full coverage concealer, One Size has got you all set up. Now they are known as a brand for like the full coverage products. Think like drag makeup. If you know anything about the creator, Patrick Starr, he's very much into those style of looks. So yeah, this gives a really smooth, buttery, full coverage finish. The only catch is if I don't set it with a good powder, or if I don't bake over top, I will find that this does settle into fine lines. But if I'm going for full coverage and I go ahead and even bake over top, this does stay for a very long time, nice and crease free. But if I just do a little bit of a light set, this doesn't fully set and it will crease up and look a little bit cakey. But for a full coverage look, baby, this is fantastic. The next concealer that I have is very similar to the One Size. It is the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. I have recommended this concealer for years on years. This one also, in my opinion, is very full coverage and very buttery smooth. I love this all over the face for a full coverage day. I would say it's less liquidy than the One Size, a little bit more powdery, but they are quite similar and they have a similar effect. I have noticed though over the years, I don't know if the formula has changed or not, but I feel like this doesn't wear as long as it used to. Maybe it's just my under eyes getting a little bit more wrinkly, but I do have to use good powders to get this to be crease free. Just like with the One Size, if I do a light set, I do notice that more creasing happens throughout the day, which creasing is nothing to be too scared of. I mean, it's gonna happen if you have creases. The creases are gonna crease. But some concealers do it a little bit more gracefully than others, and this one I haven't been loving as much recently, but it still is one of my top top favorite concealers, and for a while there it was my #1 most recommended concealer. I just love it because I love putting it all over the face for more of a full coverage look, and it's so smooth. Like, this is for a perfected glam makeup night, so I highly recommend this one, and I love the big fat packaging that goes along with it too. I have a couple of the most popular drugstore concealers next. This one is an OG. This is one that has been viral for many, many years. It kind of took a pause, and then because of TikTok, it actually came back into popularity. The Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Multi-Use Concealer. I love this concealer. I use it in my makeup kit because I felt like it worked for such a wide range of skin types and skin tones as well. These come with a sponge, but I take the sponge off. I think it's too finicky and kind of dirty. But the amount of colors that they have in the range is also incredible. I'm using a really light shade today. I normally would use something a little bit darker. This does not give full coverage. It's more of a lighter medium coverage concealer, but it's just a non-offensive formulation. This is one where, like, I'll mix it with the Tarte Shape Tape. This is back when I did makeup, I would mix this with Tarte Shape Tape if somebody needed a little bit more coverage. But generally speaking, this gave me everything that I need. It's a very thin, lightweight concealer. I like the packaging once the sponge is taken out, and you can use it for so many things. Color correction, spot concealing. You can use it as foundation if you would like. My only thing is sometimes it can pull a bit drying because of how thin it is, so make sure you have hydrated under eyes, but it's, again, not anything offensive. It just gets the job done as a concealer. I have a very light shade on, so you can see it's not giving me full coverage on the darkness of my under eyes. But if you're looking for a good lightweight, light medium coverage concealer that's affordable and will most likely work for you, it's never a bad pickup to pick this up. And the next one that I have is so beautiful. This is from NYX. It's the Bear With Me Concealer Serum. Two very interesting components here for these last two. This one is a pump, which I do like the pump, but you have to use the back of your hand or something. The shade is dark, you guys will see. I bought this when I was living in Miami, but I really like this one because it has a little bit of a glowier look to it, and you'll really see that now compared to the Maybelline, but it just blends into the skin like butter. It's one of those finishes where you really don't have to have any other makeup on. That's how skin-like the finish is here. It doesn't give amazing coverage, but this is supposed to be for a more natural, light, no makeup day. So I don't really recommend this one for a glam look, but it's really great just for putting on a little bit of coverage, but still keeping it like a no makeup look. It wears a very good amount of time. I definitely would set with it because it will kind of collect into fine lines if you don't, but also, if you are going for a no makeup look and you don't set it and it does collect in the fine lines, just blend it out if you don't want to set it. It's a really flexible concealer in that way. So if you're looking for something light, more natural, something that doesn't look like too much on the skin and that kind of blends in with the natural finish of skin that doesn't have any product on it, this is a beautiful concealer, 1000% worth the hype. NARS is so totally known for their concealers. It was like the first OG original viral concealer before virality really was a thing. This was back in the day, like 10, 12, 13 years ago, the best-selling concealer. So that goes to tell you this one is here for the long. This is a very popular cult classic, cult favorite concealer. And it's worth it, in my opinion. It's still one of the best. It's the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. And I mean, I'd say she really is that girl. I have the shade Canal, and this one gives not quite full coverage, but pretty darn close. It's more of like a natural full coverage, and there's nothing bad I can say about this concealer. This concealer does everything right. You know, it's not a super trendy formula in that it's not like the most hydrating, it's not the most glowy, which glowy concealers are what's trending right now. It doesn't follow that. It's like a soft matte finish that covers and wears a long time. Because it's soft matte, it sets down really well, lasts a long time. If you're wondering if this concealer is overhyped, It absolutely is not. It's kind of the originator of concealers. So this one deserves some respect on its name. It's so good. And then a few years ago, and I think people are still talking about this. This one, I don't know if it really categorizes under viral, but it's been very, very popular since its launched. It's the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer. So this one is the second most popular NARS concealer in a potted form. Gosh, I mean, I also love this one. This one is beautiful on the face as a spot concealer because normally when it comes to these potted concealers, I find they tend to work better as spot concealers because they're in a pot. So they're constantly exposed to air, so the formulation tends to be drier by nature because they're not going to formulate a concealer that's going to dry out when it's out in the open. So typically these are just a drier base, but this is a beautiful matte concealer on the under eyes. It's one of my, probably Glossier Stretch Concealer is another good one that's on the under eyes, but this is one of two pot concealers that I think is magical on the under eyes. Now it's called a soft matte concealer. It is a drier finish, but it's blurring. It's a blurring soft matte. It also is incredible on the face for spot concealing. This is truly one of my favorites. Sometimes a matte concealer can just be too much on dry skin, especially for a more healthy look, but this is one of the best matte concealers on the market. It again provides like a medium full coverage. I would say this one actually really does hit full. And I'm not gonna lie to you, in a lot of ways I prefer the pot concealer to their original Radiant Creamy because I feel like this one is more unique. There's not a lot like this on the market. So this is one of their best. Ooh, this one is one of the new viral concealers, but I would say this is like one of the concealers of the year. It's the Haus Labs concealer, and I absolutely am a fan of this. I told you how more hydrating concealers are in, but one of the trade-offs when you have a hydrating concealer is that you tend to lose coverage. Not with this Haus Labs one. Continues to have full coverage, but still gives you that hydration, a little bit of glow. It lasts a really long time. It's a thicker consistency, which normally, honestly, can be off-putting to me, but the thickness does not bother me here. In fact, I find that the thickness helps reduce the hollowness that you might have underneath the eye. It is a beautiful, thick, hydrating, full coverage concealer that lasts a long time, has the most beautiful finish. Absolutely worth the virality here. I think this is gorgeous and it's quite unique on the market, so definitely recommend this one. This one is a personal favorite of mine for the last couple of years, and it was a little viral, but I don't think it got the virality that it deserved, so I'm popping it in here as my choice. This is the Urban Decay Naked Quickie Concealer. This is my full coverage Glam Miami Night Out Concealer. So anytime I had a night out, well, I didn't have any of those, but anytime I had like an event in Miami in the evenings when it was hot and I needed full coverage, but I wanted to look perfected. I wanted to show up and show out. This was the concealer that I went to. I used to use this Too Faced Born That Way for occasions like that, but then I switched over to Urban Decay as my trusty concealer for those hot Miami evenings. It is so good, you guys. It gives full coverage. It does have a dry down, hence why I used it for humid climates. So I definitely recommend this for more of an oily skin type, but really, it's good for any skin type. If you like a full coverage glam, this will give it to you and it will last all night. It's sweat proof, humidity proof, super long lasting in that way, but I don't notice it looking overly drying on the under eyes. So that's one of my all-time favorite concealers that I'm always reaching for when I have a long night, a long day, hot weather. This is my go-to. I mean, you can even see here how much coverage it has given me. Girl, we are on the last two. I kind of saved the best for last. I think as of now, as of this moment, these are my current top two concealers. The first one, this was like my concealer of the year last year, the Tower 28 Make Waves Concealer. Oh, this concealer is just perfect. Perfect. So it's the perfect mix of trendy, but also perfect? Question mark. I mean, when I say trendy, I mean that it's a hydrating concealer that's very trendy, very skincare infused, but full coverage. It's kind of similar to the House Labs in that you get full coverage, but it's still hydrating, but it's also thinner than the House Labs. Now this concealer, I love it all over the face as well for more natural makeup days. The finish of this is so beautiful. I'll put it all over the face. I think it looks so smooth and hydrating on the under eyes as well. I really just feel like I don't have another concealer in my very large makeup collection like this. It's definitely the most unique concealer of its kind. I don't have one that's thin, hydrating, full coverage, can also be worn as foundation and looks absolutely stunning. This for me is an absolute must-have. I use it all the time. I don't use it so much in videos because I don't feel like it performs as well in videography, but just IRL, it's an amazing concealer. So I definitely recommend this one. The other one, I think I've only had like 1 or 2 comments of people saying that they didn't like this, but I have had like 98, 99% of people have said that they love this. I think this is one of the more versatile concealers in for who it's going to work for, any age group, younger, more mature women. It's the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. And we're going to close off all of the viral concealers with this one. And I am so happy because you know what a Natasha Denona fan I am. And then when this launched, I was like, oh my god, I love it. But I was worried it wasn't going to get the attention that it deserved. But it ended up going super viral. Thank goodness. Because it is one of the best concealers out on the market. I truly don't have a bad thing to say about this concealer. I think it's going to be beautiful for mature under eyes because it's quite hydrating, but it's not overly glowy or reflective, so it's not going to emphasize any fine lines or wrinkles or anything like that. It's quite full coverage as well. And one of the things that I think is so special about this is how smoothing it is. I feel like it's a generally very smoothing concealer. It has a hint of a more thick consistency of the Tower 28 and a little bit more of a matte finish comparing it to the Tower 28. It's not completely flat, but it's natural. It's a natural finish that's very skin-like. It's your skin, but so much better. Now, don't get me wrong, this is quite the perfecting concealer, meaning that it's going to give you a good amount of coverage, but there is something suspicious about how skin-like this looks. It is an extremely skin-like smoothing, blurring concealer, which is very, very rare. Also one of the most highly recommended concealer that I can give you. I mean, I would say if I worked at Sephora, depending on your needs, I would probably recommend this one the most to the most amount of people. Don't look too hard at the makeup because when I tell you I slapped some stuff on from this outro and I'm literally about to take this all off. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this video of me sharing my thoughts of the most viral concealers over the last couple of years. Be sure if you have any questions to comment down below. If you have any concealer recommendations, make sure you throw those down below as well. What is your favorite concealer? Do you agree that all of these should be viral? Which ones do you disagree with? Let's talk about some concealer, right? So I sure did for like the last hour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Let me know what video you want to see next. I'm thinking like a viral foundation video, potentially. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye guys, have a good one.